now.
Starting timer now. Hi, timer! It's the timer show!
Thanks, Mitch, always for keeping track of the time. All right, guys.
I don't always succeed. Okay,
really early in the morning. I think we're ready to start in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello and welcome back to another coffee-inducing episode of DSLR Film Noob Podcast, where I have an entire thermos ready to go. It is about 5:30 in the morning my time. I got up at 4 to work on show notes and talk to Mitch this fine morning. Sir, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Planet 5D. I still can't get my stinking sound effects to work right. They work sometimes when I reboot, and sometimes they don't. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I was having all kinds of issues this morning. I unplugged some USB cables to cable manage a little bit, and things stopped working. Although I will say my desk is still not cable managed, as you can see.
Look at
here.
that.
That
Holy
is a mess.
cow.
So
yeah, but you can see through it, which makes it all the more interesting.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time that glass has been cleaned. You'll also notice my face is nice and baby smooth. I was tasked with filming some asbestos abatement videos, so I had to wear abatement, which is a respirator, in order to film those. You notice I kept this full face, guys. That's the secret. You can tuck your goatee into your mask for filming, and also uncomfortable to shoot in something like that for 3 or 4 hours. You wouldn't believe how much those respirators will wear you out, just like working in them all day. I feel bad for the folks that actually have to do the real work on that. It's awful.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So you look like one of those guys from the movies from the 40s. Do you have to wear? Does it cover your eyes, or is it just your mouth?
It's full face, so it actually goes. The seal happens all the way around your face and all the way down to your neck, and so it's the cartridge. I had to go through a class to wear it, and I don't even remember the cartridges, but they're a special type of cartridge that filters out like asbestos and lead and other particulates in order to protect your lungs. And then once you go through the class, you can wear it, and then I can wear it to film the instructor talk about
wearing it.
Oh, it's like sort of ironic. And then they spray water on it, and they peel little bits and pieces off. All of those things are carcinogens and causes mesothelioma and some other horrible things. So
yikes.
If you're an industrial worker, make sure to wear your safety PPE. What about you, Mitch? What have you been up to, man?
Working my tail off trying to prepare for this NAB thing. And I think I've said half a dozen times on this show recently that NAB's in 3 weeks.
Dun, dun,
it's
dun.
really in 3 weeks, finally. I keep looking at the calendar and going, I said like 4 weeks ago that NAB was in 3 weeks. And it's not. It wasn't then. And it's finally gotten to the point where it actually sort of is like in 3 weeks. So I can say that now, but of course, what are we doing at NAB together and with a whole bunch of other people?
Oh, of course, don't forget the live blog that is contributed to by many, many folks. That'll show up on DSLRfilmnoob.com, as well as Planet Mitch's website, planet5d.com, and many other places as well, I believe. Mitch, this is getting shared across the internet. Tell me more.
It's just a fun little tool. We'll have quite a few reporters. I still don't know who, and we didn't check my mouth before we started to see if it was working right. It's obviously not working very well today. But we'll have lots of show floor reporters, including DJ and Craig from Canon Rumors and Barry Anderson and a whole bunch of other people that are volunteering to share what they're seeing out on the show floor. So it'll be a continuous stream of news and information and pictures and links to other websites that are posting NAB news. So it's the true one-stop shop for all of your NAB critical, detailed, live news.
Well, I think on that note, Mitch, it is probably time for the news.
Time for the news. Time for the news. Time for the news.
First up, a camera that everybody is probably excited about, didn't know was coming, and now is really excited about. 5,000 for 5,000. That's 5K footage for $5,000. The KineFinity, these guys have been around for a while, actually, releasing kind of unique, interesting cameras with capabilities similar to that of some of the higher end cameras. The price on this is really the grabber here. This camera is capable of recording Kine RAW, which is their flavor of a RAW format, as well as ProRes, and it is priced at $5,000. Now, Mitch, you've seen this camera. I've seen this camera. It's called the Terra, and it will be released, I believe, next month. What do you think about this guy? Is this gonna fall in line with like the FS5, the Red Raven, and some of these other cameras that are already out on the market?
I think it's very interesting because if you talk to some of the filmmakers who really are into camera gear, they know about this camera, right? Or the KineFinity kit.
Yeah, KineFinity,
Did I say my tongue was going to work today or not? No. So they're out of China, and they're, like every NAB, there's little rumblings. If you talk to people, they're, well, yeah, you ought to go over the KineFinity and see their new stuff. And I go, okay, they don't even have a booth, so where do I go? But they have a kind of like an underground or under.
They've got some really cool stuff. And they did actually have a booth last NEB I attended. It was just that it was so well hidden that you could almost not find it. It's buried in the back, and they were lonely sitting there by themselves. And because of that, I was able to just take lenses out and play around with the cameras that they had there for display. And, they were like, oh, yeah, you want to take it around for a second? And they'd like hand it to me, and I'd walk around the show floor and hand it back to them. It was really an interesting experience. The thing about this Chinese company is that they kind of are listening to the market and then throwing every feature possible at the wall, sort of a Black Magic-esque approach to their camera design, but they're doing it a little bit more nimbly, and they're addressing things a little bit faster than Black Magic because they're a very, very small development team. Now, it is a super 35mm sensor. There is an option for global shutter. There's a 6K version of this. It's mobilized similar to the Red design, where you can add different packs, monitors, and so on in order to build it up or make it as small as possible and add more features or less features. And you can top this thing out at $12,000 or $13,000 if you really get crazy with batteries, monitors, XLR inputs, and so on. But a base price like this, I mean, that's attractive to at least some people. It's not my cup of tea personally, Mitch.
Yeah.
But you've talked to a lot of people. You talk to more people than I do because I'm kind of a hermit. Have you been hearing any other buzz about this Terra camera?
I haven't heard anything. I mean, this just popped on the news. And by the way, I just did search, and they do have a booth this year. And it's kind of like on the main hallway. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, they're moving up in the world. So that's good to see. I mean, one of the big complaints has always been, hey, they make some great products, but nobody never knows about them. It's kind of a small cult-like following. Cult was probably the word I was looking for earlier.
One of the cool things, though, is you're not locked in with basically proprietary media or anything of that nature. These guys just use standard solid-state discs in order to record, and the features on these are very robust. So, yeah. It's up for pre-order right now. I believe it's intended to ship in the next month or two. So keep an eye out for that if you really are in the market for the camera. The only issue I have with this current version is previously they've kind of jumped ahead of the pack by price and by release date. This one is coming into an already fairly crowded market, but offering a bit more value. Do you think that'll eat up the sales of some of these other cameras out there?
I would love to see an actual pie chart of market share for these guys.
Yeah, I wonder how much the Ursa Mini in the 4.6K camera is eating up the market right now.
Considering it took them so long to get that out, I suspect that there are quite a few people. I mean, it's like the Tesla, right? The new Tesla was announced yesterday. Did you see that?
I did not.
Oh, I'm switching topics quickly here, but the new Tesla was announced, and it's supposed to be priced for everybody to purchase. It's
And what
only a
price?
mere $35,000.
35,000.
Yeah, that's approachable by who?
Yeah, I could get myself a sweet Honda for less than that.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, uh, everybody's talking about Tesla, but I don't know. I guess people buy them, but
I think 35,000 would put it in the. And this is not a car podcast, by the
no,
way.
I
But
know.
that would put it in the leasing arena as a
Don't talk
reasonable
about leasing.
price. So I mean, I
Anyway,
suppose if you want to lease,
which is a bad deal. Don't do it. Don't lease cars. It's economically not very smart. But so here we're getting a lot of quote unquote 5K and 6K cameras coming on the market. Although, the big rumor a couple of weeks ago was that the next GH5 was going to be 5 or 6K. So I don't know. Will we see that one anytime soon?
well, I was actually a fan of the podcast. Emailed in and let me know that the aspect ratio of the GH4 or slash GH5 in Micro Four Thirds would not allow for 6K recording. It would allow for 5K recording. So
Huh.
I don't know. It's a possibility. Something like that. I kind of slapped my forehead and thought, man, I was being all secretive and looking into the specs, and then I missed something simple and obvious like that. I would have done, so, man. But I don't know. I'm hoping we see something from Panasonic this year besides firmware updates. And there was a recent firmware update. I think we discussed it on a previous show for the GH4 that it allowed their after focus system and a few other things. But I don't know if they're going to hold much market if the firmware updates is all they have to offer this year.
Yeah.
I would like to see a camera that at least upgrades a little bit on the GH4, simply because I'm so heavily invested in Micro Four Third lenses and that format in general. I would be sad if I made that move and then am left behind for a couple years as Sony just beats the tar out of everything.
Yeah, they do.
Speaking of Sony, let's talk about this camera that Sony just announced, because we need another camera again. This is the RX10 Mark III. And you probably are familiar with the RX10 line. They just recently released the RX10 Mark II, which is only maybe 6 months or a year old at best. The difference between this camera and the RX10 Mark II is very minimal. The major key feature is the super zoom range. So we're talking a 24 to 600 millimeter f2.4 to f4 lens. That is
24
ridiculous
to
reach.
600.
24 to 600, Mitch.
Did
That
you
is
say
correct.
that right?
Yeah, it's just like, what's going on here? How do they manage to do that? And this camera itself, it doesn't look much different than the other RX cameras that have been available. And it is sort of competing with the Panasonic FC1000, which is another super zoom 1-inch sensor, but that only had a reach of 400 millimeters. Now, there's been a trend of of these really super zoom telephoto-esque point and shoot cameras. Who's this for? Do you know?
It's for mom and pop.
You think so, or do you
Oh,
think
yeah.
this maybe like animal shooters that are on the cheap?
It's aimed at the moms and pops and the young people that want to be able to have a quote unquote DSLR that they can carry around that has one lens that does everything they need it to do, and it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg.
$1,500.
Well, okay, that's an arm and a leg.
I mean, my leg that's probably at least a foot, if not a leg.
I'm looking at the images over on DP Review, and they look pretty amazing.
It does look very impressive, and it's interesting that Sony continues to iterate on this. Previous years, we've only seen 1/3 inch sensors with super zooms like this, and now 1-inch sensors in this sort of format. The reach on this, though, I mean, look at how long that lens element is. There is image stabilization internally on this particular body, but man, I wonder how good that does at 600 millimeters
Yeah.
equivalent. Wow.
Yeah.
Uh, if you're
Hey,
interested, the price on this is $1,500. The original 24 to 200 millimeter was such a sultry small reach for the RX10 Mark II is down to $1,000, and of course the Panasonic FC1000 is right in the middle and at the lowest end of the price, $799 if you want a 25 to 400 millimeter reach. Now, sorry, Mitch, I didn't mean to cut you off. What do you got,
no,
man?
I cut you off all the time, so that's no big deal. I have a question for you, though. This is kind of off topic, but that picture reminded me of it. I talked to a woman the other day that has, and I don't see them that often, but she had a push-pull zoom from Sigma that was, I think it was a 400 to 600. Do you ever get to use those push-pull zooms as opposed to the zoom that is a twist?
I haven't used one of those in years. And the last one I used was, some one of those brands that you never remember. It has the had the cool like spirals and the colors, and it was an old manual focus lens.
Yeah.
And that's the last time I've actually used one in person, and I think that was on a Pentax K1000. So
Yeah.
I mean, that was probably
I was I was fascinated by she was shooting color guard, which is
okay.
what my daughter does, and it's in a gymnasium and it's an f4 to 5.6 zoom, so it doesn't have a lot of low light capabilities. And I don't remember I think it was 200 to 400. No, it was 200 to 600. I think it was a Sigma. I'll have to look it up.
Was it a manual focus or an autofocus lens?
It's autofocus.
Wow.
And I was just fascinated because I'm typically, doing the arm twist trying to zoom with my 70 to 200. And she was just back and forth changing her zoom range. And I haven't seen that many of them, so I didn't know whether they were that popular. And I know you're the lens guy that has every bit of information about every lens ever made.
Not that one.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to look that up. The only recent lens I can think of, and it's not very recent, like I believe 2002, the Minolta. I think it's a 400 to 200, and it's often referred to as the trash can.
Yeah.
And the reason it's called the trash can is it's just a ginormous circle that's basically evenly spaced all the way across the diameter, never changes. So it looks like something you'd keep next to your sink to store your toothbrush in or something like that. And that guy is discontinued, but you can adapt it with autofocus to a Sony A mount body. It just requires the little gear drive system in order to operate the focus because it doesn't have its own internal motor. But that's kind of getting obscure. I didn't realize Sigma made any push-pull zooms that were modern, so I will be looking into that, Mitch. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I probably have to bump into her again this weekend, hopefully.
Get some specs, man. Get some specs.
Because she said it was a $2,000 lens. And I've just found on Amazon the Sigma 80 to 400, but so I don't remember exactly what the zoom range was. I was just so fascinated by watching her do it. She calls her lens George, by the way. I thought it was funny. She gives all of her lenses names, which you and I have talked about naming, and so anyways, just
all right, speaking of lenses,
yeah,
let's take a look at this one from Sony. And this is the Sony 50mm f1.8. Now, you probably remember something in that range before the Sony 55mm f1.8, which was a Zeiss lens that will set you back around $800 to $900. This is the first affordable Sony 50mm f1.8 lens, and this is going to set you back about $249. Now, that's roughly double the cost of both Canon and Nikon's offering, but it is a Sony moving into the affordable and sort of a decently priced prime market. Comparatively, they haven't really had anything under $500 or $600 before. Mitch, the Nifty 50 is always popular. Do you think this is Sony kind of catering to that? And do you think this will be all plasticky and so on, like the other Nifty 50s?
well, I certainly hope not. but in order to make lenses affordable, I think you have to kind of go that range. It doesn't look that much like plastic, but it's hard to tell from
It
photos.
does have a metal barrel, at
Does
least.
it? Yeah.
Yes, so...
Well, that's good. Always good to see low price lenses in affordable-ish ranges. We'll have to see what it does. Looks good.
The reason I bring this lens up is actually I have been adapting most of the time, and I'll cut to this camera here so you can see. This is one of the examples of my A7S Mark II with the adapter on it, and it's fine for filmmaking, but for photography, the adapters are just not that fast, and autofocus is
Really?
awful.
Really?
Yeah, who guessed that that would be the case? I mean, it's pretty much the case across most Sony adapters, with the exception I have seen some very good demo results of the FC11 from Sigma with their prime lenses, so we'll have to wait and see if that's good. But what I do want is a couple of native primes for my A7S so that I can shoot some stills now and again while I have the camera with me. I don't need major megapixels, so I have the A7S, which is like a 12-ish megapixel sensor. So it would just be nice to, oh, I've got my wife with me. I want to take a picture really quick. Or, I've got a friend here. I want to take a picture really quick. As opposed to
iPhone.
trying to deal with this adapter. Yes, obviously my phone, but I don't know. When I have to pack the camera to film something anyway, and I have, you have a bag that's full of $8,000 worth of camera gear, and you can't take a freaking picture. What kind of life am I living when that is the case?
Well, you're living the filmmaker's life who ends up buying a lot of bodies, which is why I've always loved the DSLRs mirrorless, because you can do both, although adapting lenses is a pain in the butkus.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I love about the GH4, besides the easy-to-use menu and the controls and the flip-out screen, is that the lenses focus very, very fast. It's only good to ISO 1600, but if I need to whip it out and take a stills image as well as film with it, it is very versatile. Sony, you still have to clunk around a little bit with the menus and turn some knobs in order to get it into photo mode from video mode, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
I am, however, excited about this Nifty 50. Will probably be purchasing it to throw into my collection. I also did pick up the Sony 28mm f2 lens, which is an interesting lens designed to have one of those optical adapters screwed onto the front of it. Remember in the old days, Mitch?
No.
When you would buy a video camera and then they would sell you for an extra $150 this like lens barrel screw-on diopter type of deal that would basically give you like 0.06x zoom, or it would give you a fisheye. Well, Sony has a modern lens, the 28mm f2.8 or 2.0, that has a screw-on adapter built into it, designed for both a 16mm focal range and a 24 or 25 focal range. So you get this, and then you buy an extra piece of glass screwed onto the front. And I looked at it and I was like, well, that's weird. And then I started checking into the pricing of those screw-on adapters. And did you know that those will work? The old ones, you can still find them in any size, shape, or form. And if your camera is capable of supporting one of those hanging off the front, they still work on modern cameras.
Wow. You know some stuff, man. You're amazing. Just everybody ought to pay attention to DJ because he knows his stuff.
It got me thinking. I have an old bag of 52mm thread wide-angle adapters that were for the HV20 and HV30 line from Canon way back in the day, like in 2001 or 2002. And those adapters will screw on to my Panasonic LX100.
Wow.
If it'll support it, because those things weigh like a half a pound. So I'm guessing I'm going to break something, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a try and see what happens.
Hey, have you ever seen any Nikon F adapters to Sony E-mount?
Oh, that's a great transition.
How was that? Did I do well?
Yeah, except I deleted that story
out of
the show notes. What Mitch was referring to is, and I took this out of the show notes because the adapter has no pricing information yet, but there is an adapter from Omite. If you keep an eye out for it, and it will allow you to adapt electronically to Nikon lenses. So I might have to put that back into the show notes now that it's been removed. But
Sorry, I pulled all these pages up a long time ago, and it's so I'm just paging through them as we go, and there it is. And I thought, what a segue! I'm going to move because you just talked all about. Never mind. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Some mornings train wrecks, guys. Some mornings train wrecks. All right. What we do have next in the show notes, though, is actually a weird looking computer here. And I want to mention, too, by the way, this is April 1st today. We are not covering any stories in this particular section that are April Fool's jokes. This is a real computer, not making it up. This is the MSI Vortex. And if you are looking for a PC version of the Mac Pro trash can, you can get that in this Vortex, only with really incredible specs. For about $3,999, let's just go ahead and say $4,000, you can get dual GTX 970 full-size graphics cards in a tiny box like this with i7 processor, 64 gigs of RAM, and all kinds of other awesome bits. Now, comparatively to a MacBook Pro, or excuse me, a Mac Pro, you are limited to much lower specs at a price very similar, talking 6 gigs of RAM, 3.5 gigahertz processor. Not nearly as exciting as we're getting out of this Vortex. Now, Mitch, is this enough to make your mouth water and make you move to a PC?
So
the hysterical laughter just tells me that that would be a crazy idea.
No, but I mean, it's all about the fact that the Mac Pro is circular and looks like a trash can. That's so much more appealing than this, and that's all that matters is what the look is of your computer. That's it.
This thing is very boxy. I mean, it's got LEDs everywhere. It does have a very similar cooling system where it brings air up from the bottom and then through the system and then out through the top, which is an interesting approach. The main thing I like about this is that they're actually allowing for GTX 970s in here. And CUDA is still a pretty predominant player
980.
in terms... Oh, excuse me, 980s, not 970s. The 970 is the cheaper option. Thank you, Mitch. But the thing is CUDA with NVIDIA cards is capable of giving you some accelerated editing in both Premiere Pro, After Effects, and various other editing suites. They are getting OpenCL into more systems, but that's kind of given these Mac Pros and the MacBooks a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of editing, at least in Premiere Pro and After Effects. Do you think that's kind of moving professionals over to the PC again, Mitch?
It just depends upon what your base is and what the rest of your office is. By the way, I think we throw around a lot of buzzwords. What is CUDA?
It's simply an easy set of commands that allow you to access mathematical operations inside of your GPU. So NVIDIA basically handed out a toolkit that says, here you go, guys. Here's a really simple and easy way to do calculations for vectors, for example, or any other sort of application you'd need for graphics changes. And we're going to hand this to you guys so you can develop for it very simply. OpenCL is a development kit for everything else, and it basically is the same thing, except it wasn't spoon-fed to developers, so it was less well received, and people didn't pick it up as much for editing applications initially. Now, with that said, Adobe has started to implement that a little bit more, and maybe I'm saying this wrong. Is it OpenCL or OpenGL? I always screw that up.
GL, I think, is
I've been saying CL. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So one of them is for mobile devices, and the other one is for graphics. And then because they're so close, I dink it up every single freaking time.
It's okay. Good thing you thought to ask, though. But I every now and then want to help out those people that are not quite up to speed, because you get all excited about buzzwords, and so do I. Don't get, it's not just you. But every now I like to explain, because it helps people understand what you're talking about.
If you ever open up Adobe Premiere and you're looking through your effects, you'll see a little symbol next to the effect that will tell you if there's an acceleration option available. It's also really good for rendering. If you're rendering stuff out, it can improve rendering speeds by up to, I'd say, 10 times in my latest tests between CPU rendering and GPU rendering. So if you have to get projects out fast, man, does a NVIDIA graphics card help a lot.
Does it change? I mean, you just talked about the fact that there's a little icon there. Does that mean you have to change settings in order to make that happen, or is it just the fact that you have the card in your computer?
In your preferences, you can set up the ability to use CUDA for rendering or OpenGL for rendering. So either one, you do have to go select that. And in Premiere, it's called the Mercury Playback Engine. Yeah, that once you turn that on, that'll give you graphics acceleration for both rendering and playback in your timeline. With After Effects, you do still have to dink around and make sure that your settings are correct. So if you are using a NVIDIA or ATI graphics card, either one of those, you're going to want to check your settings to make sure that they are set up for optimal rendering.
That's a good tip. I'm glad I asked.
Either way, I'm excited, mostly because I like having all the GPUs in my system. And I'm not going to buy this Vortex, but I do rock several Titans in my editing bay simply because I can kick out footage that much faster. It's not worth the investment for everybody, but a GTX 970 or 980 is not, I shouldn't say fairly close. It's within spitting distance of a Titan X. And if you can afford one of those, which they're really reasonable now, you can get a GTX 970 for maybe $340. It will really speed up your rendering if you're dealing with either CPU-only rendering or a very ancient graphics card. So keep that in mind if you really need to get projects out fast in Premiere Pro.
Does that mean that you have multiple computers or CPUs that you're like creating a render farm, or is it all in one box?
For After Effects, I have 6 systems in a render farm set up that will
You have 6
dole up.
computers sitting around?
Yes.
Okay.
But for basic editing in Premiere, I use my master system, which I'm actually on right now, and I can go to my external camera. This guy is a huge tower, ginormous, with all the hard drives, all the SSDs, and then an extra 4x4 terabyte storage space right here, and my new fancy laser printer. If you get excited about printers, that's a thing. But yeah, so that's my upstairs system, and then downstairs I just have 4 headless boxes laying around, and then I've also roped in my computer underneath of my television for the render farm. So all those together are what make things tick when I need to get stuff out fast.
You're an awesome geek, man. You're a geek. Geek.
Yeah, it's, some of it though, like in the winter, it's kind of nice. You go down and it's like standing next to a fire. You can warm your hands up next to the render farm as it's cooking. All right. Moving on down the line, let's talk about some batteries here, because this is something that has always frustrated me when you see these claims of some of the generic batteries capable somehow magically of outputting 2 or 3 times as much as the manufacturer OEM batteries. Now, are people actually, or battery manufacturers actually capable of making a more densely packed battery? Absolutely. Is that densely packed battery going to weigh more than the OEM battery? Most likely. Did they fill it up with lead? Could be. But the thing I'm getting at here is actually these .00 batteries. And this is a Sony battery, and this is the DOT battery. This thing claims to have a 2200 milliamp hour output. And the Sony battery has a 100 or a 1080 milliamp hour output. This is double. It weighs about 6 grams, maybe 5 grams less than the Sony battery, and it lasts like 25 minutes.
Ooh.
So, obviously those are some stretches in terms of claims. And a couple people asked me, well, is this false advertising? And not to dive too deep in the math, but I wanted to mention this for you guys when you see these numbers. The milliamp hour rating for these batteries is basically draw over time. So what they set the end voltage to for the battery is how long it takes for that voltage to drop off. And if they set that voltage for the battery down below what your camera is actually capable of running on, you can increase that calculation out to some crazy number. So just because the battery says it's 2200 milliamp hours, it could supply that, but its end voltage could be 2.3 volts, and you can need, maybe your camera needs 5 volts to run. So that number, it works. It's not false advertising, but it's completely fictitious for operating your camera in general. So if you see something that looks impossible in their claims, it's probably impossible. Now, just so you guys know.
That's fascinating information, DJ. And again, I never think about batteries the way you think about batteries. Of course, you use them a hell of a lot more than I do. And it's critical once you start getting on set or getting out in the woods, for example, where you maybe don't have power.
Absolutely.
To be able to, imagine getting out there and having a customer and say, well, sorry, I didn't understand that my battery was only going to last half the amount of time that they said it would, and therefore we got to stop shooting because I don't have power. Right?
Do you use generic batteries, Mitch?
I have only purchased generic batteries once, and that generic battery is sitting over there, and it's actually in the recycle pile because it's crap. It never worked, never holds a charge, and so I don't like throwing money away. I don't have a whole lot of money to throw away. So when I buy batteries, I buy the batteries made for the camera by the manufacturer, because I just don't trust other batteries.
I don't want to discourage anybody from buying generic batteries, because there are a lot of good manufacturers out of there. Wasabi is not a sponsor of the podcast or anything else I do, but they do make very reliable batteries. They are priced a little bit more than some of the generic batteries, but far less than the OEM batteries. And they're usually chipped to work with your camera. This is a Wasabi battery. I think it's about $14 compared to, what's the Canon price on a LPE6? Like $45, $69, something crazy like that. So it is affordable, but you also got to be careful if you get one of the wacky off-brands that you've never heard of before, and you put it in your camera. There are some known issues where the battery starts to fail and swells and gets stuck inside of your battery compartment in your camera. So, read the reviews. Make sure you're cautious when you buy generic batteries. I have a ton of generic batteries, but I always like to point out when you get some really blatant offender like this .01 battery, and if you're looking for these Sony NP-FW50 batteries out there on Amazon or anywhere else, you'll find hundreds of pages of them from various places. So, vet the reviews, read a few things, make sure that the milliamp hour rating makes sense. If it's some wacky, crazy high number, it's most likely not correct. So
that's great advice.
Just want to put that out there. All right.
And just to clarify, I'm wrong yet again. Canon LPE6 is currently $39.95 at B&H. So
okay, that's what when you said $69, I'm like, man, that's about $20 more than I remember them being. But
I was wrong. I admit it. I was wrong.
The other thing, before we move on the battery stories, if you own some Canon cameras, the 6D, Canon has installed so much protection to keep you from using generic batteries that Canon batteries don't work all the time in the camera. So they've made it very specific to the chip that's in there and reading the chip. And if your battery, your official Canon battery is dusty, it will give you that warning that's like, this is not a official Canon battery, blah, blah, blah. And then, you have to like click through the menus, or sometimes it'll just shut off on you. And I found that really frustrating. They fixed that in recent firmware updates, but I'm told that several of the Rebel line cameras have this issue still ongoing. So the 60D, the 70D, and possibly the 80D. So keep that in mind if you're looking for batteries and generic batteries in general as well. Some of the newer chipping in those batteries doesn't necessarily work 100% with some of that other stuff. So check your reviews.
Damn, you know some stuff. And you say you never get out and never hear anything. Huh.
I mean, I travel in very specific circles, so I hear a lot about the stuff that I do. But when someone's like, "How many KineFinity cameras have you seen in the market?" I've seen zero.
Zero, yeah.
Same with the Ursa. People are really excited about it, but I wonder how much of a hanger queen that camera is, because I have not seen it in person anywhere on any set, and I don't know. I know it exists. Or I think I know it exists. Maybe this is like all in my mind, but it's not out there. It's not around. And so, from my point of view, like, it basically doesn't exist. But from other people's point of view, it's the best camera you've ever seen. Oh my God, shooting on it tomorrow. So what do I know?
You know a lot of stuff, so don't put yourself down. But it's basically true. I mean, as much as we chit chat about some of these other cameras, Canon and Nikon are still, and Sony are still the leaders in the market, right?
Absolutely. I take my GH4 out for shooting all the time alongside my A7S, and people still come over and like, "Hey, well, what camera? What do you got there? Is that a Canon camera? Can I see that?" And then you show it to them, and they're like, "Oh, wow!" And they play around with it, and they're like, "This is great." And you think because you're a Micro Four Thirds shooter that the Micro Four Thirds has high penetration across the market, but
no,
it doesn't. I mean, there are very specific people just like me shooting on GH4s all over the place. They're great cameras, do a good job, but a lot of people also like me have staples like the 5D Mark III that we've held on to for years and just continue to shoot on.
Yep.
And if you have something you like and you're happy with it, oftentimes you will stick to that simply because it's such a hard move to go from one brand to the other.
Well, and let's also talk about mirrorless, right? Mirrorless. Everybody's talking about mirrorless, but it's still 10% of the market. It's
true.
Although
for filmmakers, I do see a ton of A7S and A7S Mark IIs in the field. I know people that have 2 or 3 of them in their collection that they're shooting on all the time. So in the film side of things, at least, I think Sony has a really decent inroad compared to where Canon's at right now.
Yeah.
In terms of photography, though, you almost never see, unless you're in, let me back up. If you're in Singapore or Taiwan, you'll see tons of Sony gear. But if you're in the United States, you see very, very few photographers rocking an A7 line camera.
Yep, very true.
And that's why I kept one Canon camera for photography. All right.
2.
Two. I don't use. Man, now you're calling me on it again. I don't use my T2i for photography because it's not a photography tool.
Okay, sorry.
All right.
Okay.
We've gotten through most of the stories. I got one more story to go, and then we'll talk about a couple of goofy April Fool's things, and then we'll get out of here. So the one story, and Mitch threw this in, and I was like, what the heck is this? Tell me about the $5 lens, Mitch.
We lost the other story. Huh. Okay. The $5 lens, I don't know anything about it. You're the expert. I just thought it would be interesting to potentially talk about the fact that a $5 lens is getting some market share or some discussion. There it is.
Okay, I found the story that Mitch was talking about, and I missed it because it got buried somewhere in the back of the show notes. But as far as $5 lenses go, if you go on eBay, guys, and I see videos like this all the time, there are a few people that put these out that are like, hey, watch me go buy a camera lens for $22.38. And you can go on eBay and do so. And then the video is like, here's the lens, look at this, congratulations. So if you go over to eBay and you start searching around, there are tons of old lenses from Olympus, not Valtrex. I don't know why I said that.
Okay.
Let's back away from that one. But there are tons of lenses out there that are available from all these different old manufacturers and Russian companies, all
Lomo.
these places,
Yeah.
and you can buy these lenses for like 20-30 bucks. So that's been the case for years. It's going to continue to be the case. And in the minute someone announces a $5 lens, the price is going to go up to like $25, guys. So just be aware of that. If you find these, keep them to yourself. Maybe tell your close friends, because as soon as the news gets out that there is a lens for sale for cheap, everybody will drive the price up. Now, the next story here is Mitch's, and this is a rental style Netflix sort of all-you-can-eat approach to camera gear. Tell me more about this, Mitch.
I found this just yesterday, so it's brand new to me. It's called Parachute with no E on the end, parachute.co. And their concept is very much like Netflix originally was with sending out DVDs. With Netflix, you would get 3 DVDs for, I forgot, 10, 15 bucks a month, whatever it was. So as you got a DVD, you ship one back, then you could get another one, right? So they're depending upon how many you purchased or what your plan was at the time, you could do one DVD. So this is very much like that. Their plan is, they're brand new, they've just come out, so they don't have everything working. It's sort of like a pre-sale, but the concept is for $149 a month you can get an entire package sent to you. So let's say you wanted to fly a Phantom 4, so they would send you the entire package, whatever you needed, and you could keep it as long as you wanted. So if you wanted to keep it for 3 months, you could do that. Excuse me, like you could with the old Netflix. And I'm not sure exactly how they're putting their packages together, whether you will have a queue where you say, well, I would like to have, a lens package, and maybe there's 3 or 4 in there. Because you can only have one package checked out, per se, at any one time, and then when you're done with it, you send it back. But for $149 a month, I mean, let's say, for example, you wanted to rent a lens on my favorite Lens Pro to go, and that might cost you $150 for 5 days, including shipping back and forth. And here you could get an entire package. You could get a Canon 5D Mark III and a lens. And again, it's still kind of fuzzy because they haven't clearly defined what you can get at any one time, if there's kind of limits, but they say unlimited. So it's an interesting concept. I'm really eager to see where it goes. I did go ahead and sign up. They don't charge your credit card or anything at the time, so it's like getting early notice that they're going to have this product available. But it's fascinating concept. Let's say you need a kit for a couple of weeks for $149. Where are you going to rent an entire kit for several weeks on a time for that kind of price? It's dirt cheap, relatively speaking. Now, again, there's still things we got to learn, and it's a monthly fixed rate. So if you don't have any kit checked out, they're still paying for it, right? So I typically will only rent something for a particular project, and then I maybe not need anything for a couple of months. So, I don't know how well that works, but maybe it just gives you the opportunity. Say you want to test out the Sony A7S Mark II. Bang.
Now, are you locked in for a year on this, or can you subscribe, unsubscribe, and subscribe again?
Well, that's. I don't believe you can do that. There wasn't anything in the FAQs about being locked in for a certain time frame. But they'll kill themselves if they start allowing you to do, 1 month on and 3 months off. That their whole model is that they want to have that continuous revenue stream coming in to be able to afford to have that much gear that they can send out.
That's about 16. So 12 times 150, I would say roughly $1,600 a year.
Yeah.
It's fairly substantial.
But if you rent gear much, that's dirt cheap.
That's true. I guess it depends on how you rent gear. If you have a
Right.
local place that you can go to and get it physically, you might still it'd be close. But if you have to get it via mail order, then this does seem like a good deal. What is there any beta selection up so you can kind of see what they've got for inventory?
No, and that's part of the problem. There's not a whole lot of information at this point. They when you go through the sign up process, you specify some things, your favorite kinds of gear, whether you rent lighting, whether you rent lenses or accessories and stuff like that. So I I don't know what they're going to do with that information. There's just not enough info there to really totally understand. I did write them and try to open a dialogue because I want to know more, but we'll have to see. It's a very interesting concept. It might be great. It might really suck, depending upon what your needs are. And again, like if you rent gear a lot, I mean, if you could get a Sony A7S to test for a month, and it only cost you $149 with a lens and maybe a flash or something, that's very appealing, even for somebody like me who runs a blog. Getting that kind of gear to be able to use as long as I want, because I could get stuff from B&H, but they always want it back in 2 weeks.
Yep.
So maybe I would like to hold on to something longer in order to test it out really well. So maybe I kept something for 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like a bad deal. The other thing I've seen that's similar to this is a co-op in several cities that I've worked in. You talk to some of the local filmmakers, and they all gang together with their little bits and pieces of equipment and sign up for a co-op where everybody pays in a monthly subscription fee of like $30 or $40 a piece. And with that, the co-op as a group buys different equipment, funds different projects, and kind of moves forward with different shooting schedules based on a committee vote of all the members of the co-op. And that is it's a very attractive model if it works. The problem I've seen with these co-ops, though, is sometimes one leader and another leader disagree, and you'll end up having a breakdown in the entire system and model. The ones that work good together and have a good mix of people generally do okay, but
Yeah.
if you end up having someone fighting with someone else and they leave the co-op to start their own co-op, well, now you've reduced the benefit of both co-ops because
Right.
you don't have as much money to work with.
Right.
This, though, I like the idea. I'm a little nervous, A, about the selection, B, about the quality of kit, and
Sure.
C, how do you unsubscribe? If you've ever signed up for any of these long-term sort of reoccurring fee monthly subscription systems, I signed up for a box, or not box wine, but a wine club. It's called
Right.
Club W, and it's very simple. You go on their website, you type in some stuff, and bam, you start receiving 3 bottles of wine from all over the United States and all over the world, every month. But when you want to leave the program, good luck. You're going to be on hold for 2 hours. You're going to have to call multiple times, send several emails. No way on their website whatsoever to unsubscribe. It is a veritable rat hole to try and find your way into their system in order to get out of said subscription. So, I don't know. That would be my concern, I suppose.
Sure. There's all sorts of unanswered questions. I mean, heck, you can't even get onto the website and see what the inventory is, like you said, and what can I check out? How do I say what I want to check out? None of that stuff works yet. So it's just an interesting concept. We'll have to see where it goes. One of the other things, by the way, and I think we've talked about it before, there's a website called Camera Lens, Lens.
Ah, yes.
And I've tried to rent something on there, by the way, and there are some problems with stuff like that because, like with anything, there was a lens I wanted to rent this weekend, and there's only one available in St. Louis, and I can't get the gal that's renting it to answer my emails. You know, so I can't get access to this lens that I was hoping to have this weekend because she won't respond. So, you know, there's problems with every system, and I'm just curious to see where this Parachute goes.
The camera lens actually here in Portland area it works rather well. I've used it to rent some audio kit,
Have you?
and yeah, it was a very painless transaction. You know, you contact the guy, and the guy's like, "Hey, I'll meet you on the corner or whatever," and like make the exchange, and then drop it off, this day, and it was really simple, really easy. The guy even came up and met me, and we had a cup of coffee and kind of talked about what I was working on, and it was friendly. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. So, okay, now that I'm done being negative Nancy. Let's talk about some weird, goofy April Fool's stuff. Mitch, you posted this first one from Magic Lantern. Tell me a little bit about this one.
I I found it 5 minutes before the show started, so I don't know that much about it. It was posted on Facebook. Crop mode recording, 1:1 RAW, H.264, outlandish stuff, and I love the folks at Magic Lantern, and Alex, who is the leader of the clan, is a fascinating guy because he doesn't just pimp you or chimp you lightly. If you actually follow through and go to the website, there is a video that he's created that's 9 minutes long or 6 minutes long, showing the features of this new setup for Magic Lantern. Go to the next one. You scroll down to the next one.
All right.
I mean, this is a long post. Keep going.
Holy
Keep going.
cow.
That video right there.
This one right here.
Yeah. It's, how long does it say? 9 minutes?
Yeah, we're talking, well, 6 minutes and 33 seconds, but yeah, he's scrolling through all the features. Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
He really makes you think, holy crap, this is real. Because I was looking at this and like there's settings, and he's picking settings and the things changing, and to be frank, I still don't know if it's an April Fool's joke or not.
I would say that's hardcore trolling, but I might be incorrect in that statement.
He's just damn good at it. And I was telling DJ before the show started, I love Alex. I've talked to him a couple of times, but he is so geeky. I mean, he is way beyond DJ geeky, because he's like all excited about this new feature that's been added to Magic Lantern, and I'm like, dude, slow down. Everything you just said went 10 miles over my head. I mean, I don't fathom what you're talking. Can you bring it down to my level? And he's like, oh, it's pulling teeth to get him to come down. Great guy, love him to death, but man, and that's what makes these April Fool's jokes so good, is because I can't tell whether he's telling me the truth or not, because it's just way out there, everything they do. Anyway.
All right, this next one is less fooling. This company claims to have invented the ability to taste your food via your phone by licking your phone, basically. So you'll see here in a second they're testing the phone, giving it a nice lick, and that's how they're previewing restaurants. That one I thought was kind of fun. I got a good laugh out of that.
Yeah.
These are all in the show notes here. There's probably a bunch more that are hitting the screen today. So if you're out there looking around, just remember it is April Fool's Day. So there were a couple years ago and last year that were pretty exciting for people who believed them about turning your iPad into the perfect video monitor that plugs directly in your camera and things like that. So just be cautious when you're looking through all of this stuff, because it is the day where they trick you, and you won't find out until tomorrow that you've been fooled.
And it's unfortunately fairly sad. And we did an April Fool's joke on Planet 5D, not last year, but the year before that. That was written by I've forgotten who even wrote it. And I have actually gotten letters in the last 6 months, maybe one or two, saying, whatever happened to that camera that was announced and they specify the name. It was, I've forgotten, we called it the Canon 5XYZ something or other. But people, even though we put at the bottom of the story, because I really dislike stories that don't actually say at the end, April Fools. That, I mean, it's fun. I mean, some people still don't know the Onion is fake, right? So,
Yeah.
Because you constantly see people posting something and you're like, oh, man, this is amazing. And then you see that it comes from the Onion, and you're like, dude, did you know the Onion is a farce website? They post nothing but jokes. Really? Well, I didn't know that. But so anyway, I still get every now and then an email saying, hey, whatever happened to that Canon XYZ camera? The Planet 5D was the only place that I've ever seen anything. And I'm like, it was an April Fool's joke. And we said so at the bottom. Sorry, this is an April Fool's joke. But people don't read that far.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I don't know. I'm not gonna feed the April Fool's fire. I'm gonna stay away from it. But besides the stuff that we did say was April Fool's, the rest of this is all legit news. So keep that in mind as you move forward. On that note, Mitch, where can people find you?
I'm at a website called planet5d.com. You can find out some of my personal ramblings on planetmitch.com. And I'm Planet Mitch on Twitter and Planet Mitch on Facebook and Planet Mitch everywhere you go.
And of course, guys, you can find this podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, anywhere podcasts are distributed. Be sure to rate, subscribe, and tell us what you think about the show. You can leave your questions in the YouTube comment section because that's a great place for me to easily scoop them up and throw them into the show notes. And thanks as always for listening and watching. I'm DJ, and you can find me at DSLRfilmnoob.com. And we will see you next time on another episode of April Fool's Podcast. So my wife told me a really funny story about, because she's a pharmacy tech, about Valtrax. And I meant to say Vivitar, but I said Valtrax. And then I thought about the joke, and it got me laughing. And I had to stop my face and because it's not funny to anybody but me.
Yeah.
And I'm giggling to myself like a little schoolgirl, and I'm like, okay, I got this. I'll stabilize this, and I'll just move on to the next thing because I'm about to crack up on myself.
I had no idea what was going on there.
Vivitar is the lens, the old lenses
Yes.
that you can find on eBay, not Valtrax. That is for other ailments. If you know what it is, you're probably So I don't want to. I can't say any names or anything, but I can tell you the joke. They issue that medication for cold sores for people that have stuff on their mouth as well, right?
Right.
Well, most people know it for the commercials where it's your partner has a breakout, blah, blah, blah. And so the person had the prescription and had gone on dates and had it with them and didn't realize that they didn't know about the commercials. And the dates always ended the first date. And it turns out, and then when the person found out that that's what it was for, they're like, oh my God. They're super embarrassed because they'd been carrying this around like it was just a prescription for something, no big deal.
Right.
And
Whoops.
Yeah, so sorry. Now
okay.
You know what I was giggling about. Oh man, all right.
I don't know. Had a hard time getting my brain/mouth working at the beginning of that show.
No worries.
Yeah.
On that note, guys, though, we're going to end the behind the scenes. I got to get to a meeting here in about, I got 18 minutes. I can do
okay.
that. So I will see you guys next time. Thanks, Mitch, as always, for coming by.